Hi there. Thank you so much for taking your time to share your experience with Claude Code. I'd love to, at the moment, I'm talking to people because I really want to understand how people are using it, and you fit our perfect customer. So I'd love to hear some of your stories. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. I'm not looking for a specific answer, just your honest feedback. But ultimately, if you can't remember anything, that's okay. I just want to hear about your experience. So, a couple of housekeeping pieces. I'd like to keep our conversation to 15 minutes. Would it be
Yeah.
okay if I record our conversation so I don't have to take notes?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing a bit of role play here.
Yeah.
And then lastly, just going into this from your perspective, and the best way to think about it is though I'm filming a documentary about the day that you suddenly woke up and realized I'm going to buy Claude Code. Okay, so at times it's going to sound a little bit repetitive, but again, it's because I just want to make sure that I'm accurately representing your experience. So, first of all, can you tell me what you do? So, your job title and maybe what a typical day looks like?
Okay. So I'm one of the founders of Rico AI, and we are a fintech product that helps MSMEs or enables MSMEs with the power of AI. Yeah. So a day in my life looks like pretty standard, going to office and collaborating with the team, joining the stand-ups, making some customer, we're talking to some partners right now. Yeah, connect with my co-founders and try to understand the problems being faced and try to help out where I can and yeah, try to grow the business overall. Yeah, it's
Perfect. Thank you for that. And right now, can you, if you're comfortable, can you share with me a couple of your top priorities in your business for you personally?
yeah. Yeah, I would say the number one priority right now is to help us build a product which is of global grade standard. So that includes getting all the quality issues and ensuring we are going as per the timeline. So that's a major priority is the product. And the second point would be setting up the distribution channel. So for us, that means getting in touch with the partners and the distributors
Yeah.
who resell our, who could potentially resell or help us distribute our own software. So yeah, those are the two main priorities. And the third one would be to, yeah, be there for the team and support them whenever needed. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. And so let's talk about how Claude fits into your life. So how does Claude Code specifically fit into the work that you do? What does it do for you?
It helps us get started faster for the, if I would go to the core of it, it helps us, yeah, get going like the boilerplate. There's no need for any boilerplate. We can just straight up go and build prototypes, validate any customer findings and yeah, build faster. So that is the primary reason. And also it converts a lot of our non-technical stuff also into builders. So that's a huge advantage.
Yep. And in terms of what you've tried previously, why did you think it would work better than previous solutions?
I think it's the ability to be able to handle really large amount of context, whereas with other tools, and for the most of it, it's the output. We were able to see much better output with Claude Code versus ChatGPT Codex or with other coding level tools like Cursor. So yeah,
Mhm.
and also there was an overwhelming amount of this was just the tool that the entire team wants to use. So we knew we had to get this one. And of course,
Okay.
we tried and tested all the other alternatives. So yeah.
Yeah, okay. And what made you interested in Claude Code particularly in the first instance?
Yeah, I think it's again the ability to build fast and get started directly and it understands what you ask of it and it comes back with an output that doesn't seem too far from what you imagine. So you know you can reach the point where you would imagine that the customer may find value in it. So it helps you get to value faster than maybe other tools.
Okay. And was anyone else involved in the decision to purchase Claude Code?
Oh yeah, there was the entire team. like I said, like Suze and Bhaskar and all our technical team members, Yogesh, and that was everyone was sold on Cloud Code by the end of it. And of course, it was quite a journey. In the beginning, there were people who maybe didn't believe in AI. And then by the end of it, like all of us are pretty much convinced that this tool is making a big difference. And there have been many moments like where we realize this value. So yeah.
And out of interest, who was the one that instigated? Like, how did you find out about Claude Code?
It's all over LinkedIn. And I would say one of our co-founders, our CTO, Suze, and also CMO, Bhaskar, they were both really into it. So that really helped
Yep,
everyone get on board with it. Yeah.
perfect. Okay. And one question I didn't ask at the beginning actually, when did you start buying, when did you start purchasing it?
We were in a situation that we had to buy the Teams plan last week, but we have been using it for the past few months. We overused it to an extent where they pushed us to buy the team plan. So yeah, but we bought it last week, essentially, if I were to give it in a nutshell.
Yep, no, perfect, no, perfect.
Yeah.
And I just want to dig a bit more into how you thought it would make life better. I'm looking through here. You wanted to get started faster, you wanted to build faster. Non-technical staff then became builders. These are the themes that I'm picking up from you.
Yeah,
Have I missed anything?
that pretty much summarizes it. It is about, yeah, the efficiency and yeah, overall output is just much faster than any other approach. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
And
Speed would be the critical point. Speed is a critical point
okay, and why is speed a critical point?
because we want to validate our ideas fast and realize our customers' feedback fast and make those changes quicker rather
Mhm.
than later. So that's where it really helps. If I look without Claude Code, the boilerplate or the initial step is usually what can take a lot of time in terms of thinking and planning and starting to execute. And this is just purely gives us the simple experience of building by typing. So that's really phenomenal.
Perfect, thank you. And if we can just kind of dig into the issues that you had with your old solution. So, whilst we've been talking, you've mentioned ChatGPT, Codex, Cursor. Were there any other solutions that you were using to solve this
Yeah,
problem?
yeah, yeah. So if I go way behind, we were working on Lovable, and the major problem with Lovable was a technical challenge because we use GitHub for managing our code base. And in Lovable, there was no feature for having multiple developers collaborate on multiple branches. Everyone had to stick to one branch. So that was, although it was great for prototyping, we outgrew it and we tried to make it work with them, but it didn't make sense for us anymore. It was slowing us down. It was a bottleneck. The features they were not enabling us to build at this speed. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. And then, so I'm just going to put your memory to the test. Thinking back, do you remember the first time when you realized that Lovable wasn't doing the job you needed it to?
Yeah, exactly. When for me, it was realizing about the branching. The moment we realized that they did not have branching, like multiple branches being like where we all can push code with multiple branches, like we knew we had a bottleneck and we were in touch with their support and we were willing to even buy an enterprise plan if they would enable us with that feature, but that was just not possible.
And what was going on when that happened? Were you sat in the office? Were you on your own? Was there someone else ranting with you?
Yeah, all of us were in sync with that issue. And I think we were trying to overcome it. And by keeping these slots of time, we were thinking of how to solve that issue so it doesn't hamper our productivity. But yeah, I think soon enough we knew we had to make the switch. Again, Suze and Bhaskar and Yogesh, we all knew this bottleneck and Lovable was not able to solve it. I even joined their Discord and spoke to a bunch of people and they were like, nah, this is just for initial prototyping. And if you're going to try to build something production grade, yeah, this is not going to work. And so that
Perfect.
kind of validation helped us. Yeah.
And in terms then of when you figured that you needed to make the change, when the CMO, did they on that day offer Claude Code as a recommendation, or was there something else going on?
Yeah, it took a while for us to reach that point where we knew we would have to migrate because fairly large change, and we were concerned about what implication it would bring on the application level,
Yeah,
whether the code would still be would it get out of standards because there were two different memory sets we were working with. But yeah, I think it's, as always, you just need to take that big step once you know you have a problem, and we had a solution. So yeah, that's kind of what it
cool.
was.
And I'm just piecing stuff together here. So we've got lovable, not fit for purpose because of the branching. If you then go to Discord to ask potentially, is there a workaround? The gap that I'm trying to fill in here is that we've got you signing up to Claude for an entire team piece here. You'd mentioned ChatGPT, Codex, Cursor. Did they come after Lovable then?
Yes, they did. We evaluated those options as well. Cursor was, again, we wanted to use one coding agent across the team,
Yeah,
just not to have too many of them running around. And Cursor was fine, but better for really technical people like Suze or Yogesh. They were comfortable with it. Like, but people who were trying to design, like from product side, that was not as comfortable. But also just the output quality from Claude, like it takes lesser steps to achieve the output. It took much lesser steps than others, and it was more
yeah.
efficient that way.
Okay. And then
And
so
yeah,
I
the same
just
codex as well. Yeah.
yeah, perfect. So I'm mindful of the time. I'm going to go over by 2 minutes if that's okay, because I've just got a couple more questions. Usually the interviews aren't this rushed. So in
Yeah.
terms then of again, like help me here. I'm filming the documentary of that day that you woke up and you
Yeah.
went Claude code for everyone.
Yeah.
So you've looked at the different kind of alternative solutions. So in terms of ChatGPT, Codex, and Cursor, would you say that they are like for like tools to Claude Code?
Broadly, yeah. Yes. They're in the same space.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. And let's say you go try and think back to that point that you were looking into Cursor. Talk me through how you're researching its viability for the solution that the outcome that you're trying to create here.
Yeah. So again, the outcome being speed, I tried to onboard myself and it took me a few hours, and yeah, it took quite some getting used to, then even lovable. And I wouldn't say I was particularly super impressed with the output overall. Speed being one side and output being the other, I was not impressed by either. Even if it took me longer to onboard, but it gave a significantly better output, I would definitely consider it. But neither of these points were being met. And then for me, also not being too technical, and other members who were not too technical, I could see that would be a bottleneck because then design speed would slow down. So then, yeah, so that's what went on with Cursor then. Yeah.
Okay. So was Cursor the last solution that you were using before Claude?
Yeah, I tried the Cursor, and I think some Suze as well. I think he tried it, and Yogesh as well. But we tried a bunch of things, and but it was clear we were also trying Claude at the same time, and it
Got
was clear as day that this was the tool we needed. It was able to do certain things which we tried, and it was quite lucky that we were able to use one of their models, right? The model is better. It was able to reverse compute the formula for stock valuation for us, which was huge. And we had a huge bottleneck on certain ERP developer, and it was able to completely eliminate the need. Like just sound like what they say, right? Replaced by Cloud Code. And that actually happened with this small piece of software that which works on this really old school technology and has a Windows application. And it was like overnight we were able to achieve that. And it was just, yeah, extreme. We were totally floored by just the level of what it was able to do.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect.
And save a
And
lot
then
of cost. Yeah.
And my kind of final question here is if you had to narrow it down, what was the number one reason why you decided to buy Claude Code for your team?
Speed and output quality. Yeah.
Oh, but perfect. Okay. I'm very mindful that I went over 3 minutes. Usually I go over a lot more than that. But
That was
yeah,
really good though.
but firstly, thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
It can not you sometimes when people go into this, you're thinking, oh God, what's this going to show about me? But yeah, no, I really appreciate it. I appreciate the
Yeah.
honesty. I'm hoping that everyone has been able to see that the conversation that we started with, very different to the conversation we were finishing with, because it wasn't until right at the end, the kind of ERP, you really were focusing on that. And
Yeah.
hopefully I've picked out two or three, maybe, yeah, two to three catalysts which help nudge you along the buying process. But I'm not going to go into my answers here because this is where I'm going to throw it back to you guys. So, again, thank you very much. I'm going to
Appreciate
jump
it.
back into my slides and then we'll just work through the summary pieces. So,
Perfect.
thank you. So, bear with me a second. Can you see the slides? Yeah, cool. Thank you
Yes.
very much. Okay, so would anybody feel comfortable sharing what stood out to them about that interview? Come off mute, pop it in the chat, whatever's easiest. Nope. Yes.
Yeah, Ayush.
Yeah, for me, one thing that stood out was like even though the interview duration was relatively short, we were trying to get to the same answer through multiple approaches. We were asking the same question in different ways. I don't know if it was because Claude as a solution is a very popular solution, and maybe we already know what the buying process was. But that's something that stood out for me, that we didn't just ask a question and move on after hearing the first answer. We wanted to hear it again and again.
Yeah, no, that's been, and I'm glad that you took that because I think if I had taken the first answer, we signed up because I saw something on LinkedIn, and I'm generalizing here. You can't really do very much with that. So yeah, that's why you've got to keep on prodding, and there are actually a lot more questions. So I'm glad that you saw that's what we were doing from that perspective. Was there anything that kind of surprised anyone listening to that whilst we're from that experience? Anything that surprised them? From my perspective, it was the more you ask a question, the more you start understanding actually there were three, four different competing solutions. So you can very quickly understand which category to sit yourself in. Was that something in the chat then? I can't see anything, but I'll carry on.
Yeah,
Oh,
I can read what's in the chat. Nick said I was going to say the same thing. It was interesting to see how you really hammered down on the key information points to gain the level of clarity that we ended up with. Yeah.
perfect. Perfect. So I love doing bomb below stuff because you always take part in stuff and it makes it a lot easier. So thank you for that. Mindful of the time, so let's look at some of the answers that you felt would be appropriate in the actual interview sheets as well. So again, this is a sheet that was developed by Customer Camp by Caitlin Bourgoin. I'm a firm believer of there's no reason to invent the wheel if something works perfectly. We have full permission to use her sheets in there, and this is what we're going to be using. So the first one then, would anybody feel comfortable sharing what they thought was the trigger event? So what had to happen for them to realize that not Claude Code was the right solution, but what was the trigger point here? What made them realize they had a problem?
Can we have a volunteer for this? All right, Anushree. Being unable to work on multiple branches in Lovable.
Yep, yep. Anyone else? No, that's fine. Okay, I'll move on to the next one then. In terms of the catalyst, then, If the branching was the trigger, what was the catalyst that pushed them on? So I would suggest maybe it was the Lovable and the branches were the catalyst. They realized that actually what they were using wasn't quite fit for purpose, and that's actually what sent them into looking to different directions. But again, just my piece. What about the second catalyst? What was the thing that had to happen to allow the purchase of the team subscription?
Do we have anyone? Anushree? Ayush says the fact that Lovable refused to work with them even with the institutional plan.
Yep. Yep.
Or
I
say it was maybe one or two team members. I think it was the founders who were trying it out and they were really impressed with the quality and the output. And that's when they decided to go for the team plan, the first experience they had with the product.
Yep, that sounds great. Another perspective could be, Harsh, you mentioned that you were using Claude in the first place and something happened that made you realize you had to push to a team package. Am I right in remembering that correctly?
That's right. They
Yeah.
banned us. We got an email saying you banned, file an appeal because all our work was there. And then, yeah, we had to repurchase. And it's really strange. It's really strange, that strategy. And I was like, is that what you're supposed to do with your high using power users? Like,
It
if they
costs the
give us a
same.
warning, they literally it was like they policed us into buying $100 more a month. It's crazy.
Yep.
It's really crazy. But yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah.
Yep. No, so that
That
could
is.
be an example of a catalyst then put you into decision mode as well. So again, when we're going through this, think about how you might be able to lean on this from a marketing perspective or sales perspective. How could Claude's competitors or how could Claude use this to improve their proposition? And I think the kind of final one here, and I think this is where actually were really clear, but for anyone else that was listening, what do you reckon the winning value proposition was? What was the number one reason why Claude performed better than Cursor and Codex? Because you were running things at multiple times, weren't you? No, I'll keep the slides moving along. The note that I made here was you said that you were super impressed. You were using Cursor and Claude at the same time, and it was the output. It was the output of Claude that kind of swung it for you, and that's why you kind of started that purchase agreement with Claude themselves. Okay, so in terms then, I'm mindful of the time here. Channels. Okay, so we're just going to have a little look here because we weren't able to answer every question. Usually I would dig into things like the pains and the desires. So now you're using Claude, what could be improved, what isn't quite right based on the marketing that would come through. We would dig into things like that. But one thing that I definitely have a note of here are what are the channels? So who or what influence the decision to purchase Claude? I found three. Oh, yep. Nick.
The first channel was the recommendation by CTO and CMO. The second was LinkedIn visibility, and then I'll put team buy-in.
Yep, perfect. Maybe four then, maybe four. Yep, I've got the same ones. The other one, the other name that came up was Discord. That was another channel that was being used as well. Okay, no, thank you for that. Thank you. Okay, again, I won't go into all of these, but if somebody could help suggest what a potential objection could have been here, because I feel like we've listed the alternate solutions. What was the key objection to Claude being brought in for the team?
Do you have anyone? Maybe I can go, Lucy. So the first one was with Lovable that did not allow for branching. And the second one was with Cursor, where it was too technical. Only the technical folks on the team could use Cursor. And so that's what led to Claude.
Yes, perfect. Yes. So I've got a similar kind of take on that as well. It was the focus around the non-technical team being able to embrace it and be used by more people within the company as well. So the reason why I like focus on these particular points is these could be some of the messages or the features or the outcomes that not lovable, Claude could put on their landing pages as well for people that are on the fence and deciding whether or not to sign up. If they've got a team that aren't overly technical, that could be seen as a plus point from that side of things. Okay, so what do we do then with all of the information that we have collected? And what we do is we turn it into something known as a job story or a job statement. Okay, so we know a job. Just move that. We know a job describes the kind of progress that a customer is trying to make within a particular circumstance. That's what the theory was at the beginning. What we need to do is create something that is short, one sentence to the point, that the whole team can rally around. Okay, so in terms of creating a full-on jobs to be done statement, that takes a body of work, but this is something again that makes this process accessible. And the way that you would put together a job story then is it's made up of this framework here. When I trigger event, I want to verb as objective verb so I can desired outcome. Okay, and the idea is that you would fill in the different words to be able to create this statement here. Okay, so let me just give you two examples and then we'll just have a quick think about what it might look like from Claude's perspective. So this is an example of a job story for one of my customers. So when my churn is high, help me identify the gaps in my customer's experience so I can optimize my marketing. So that's something that I use for a number of my marketing campaigns. If we're looking at a direct to consumer example, here's one. So when I am moving house, help me to transport my household belongings to a nearby location. Okay, so writing these clear statements are an effective way to get a whole team around what a customer's goal is. Okay, it stops becoming a marketing discussion or sales discussion. If you're able to understand the high level outcome that someone's looking to achieve, all of a sudden all ideas can go back on the table. So if I was to ask someone to have a go at filling this in for Claude, have we got any takers? So just as a kind of a helpful piece here then, so when I am using Lovable and there aren't enough branches, I want to process code, I want to validate my idea, I want to develop code for my non-technical team, something like that, so I can validate my ideas faster. That's a very kind of very rough guide here, but what I'm trying to show you here is there are elements of that interview that you can then drop in here.